Okay, you want to make sure your stop stops this table right at the correct spot where the center line of the edge of the teeth is perfectly aligned with the center of your pivot point. This way you're going to get a nice circle when you want to cut a template or a disc. This simply is adjusted by tightening the nut at any dimension you want up to the length of course, your table. I want to cut a circle or a disc using this bandsaw wizard table. Basically, I want something that's 13 3/4 in diameter, which means I took a 14-inch square piece of plywood, because I needed out of plywood, connected the dots from the two corners, and found the center. I drilled a 5/16 hole in the center of this board, because I don't mind if there's going to be a hole in the disc that I'm making. If you don't want a hole, you can always actually just add something to your platform, like double stick tape, or vacuum, or anything that you can imagine. The idea is I want to set this pivot point 6 7/8 away from the edge of this blade. This is moved by just simply tightening this T-bolt. If we measure over 6 7/8, there's 6 7/8 right there. Double check it. I just kind of snugged it. 6 7/8, right on the money. So I'll tighten it a little bit. So there's my 6 7/8 pivot. Now this doesn't work very well, so what you do is that, remember, we have that stop underneath that always, when you slide this, will stop at the center. That's why we have a stop. So the idea is you bring this back far enough, and you gotta sometimes support the table with your other hand or provide a sawhorse underneath it, because you don't want this tipping off of your own bandsaw's table. You mount the hole, if you can find the pivot. So you see you only had to come a little bit back, and there's your pivot. Make sure it's seated all the way down, because this has threads, but this doesn't. Your pivot has threads, but your hole does not. So now you have still a little wiggly. Pound it down. So the idea is you turn on your bandsaw, you hold with your left hand your table, and your right hand with the piece you want to cut. Make sure everything's clear, turn on your saw, hold onto your piece, slide the table into the saw. Once it hits the stop, now you start spinning it. I actually use my belly to hold the table up against the stop, but you can clamp it if you want. So now I'm cutting this circle, and I left a little meat on the outside on purpose so I don't end up with any flat spots. Alright, let me move this out of the way. Now what I do at this point, you can back it off, but I like to shut the saw off. I don't want to mess up the edge with the teeth by mistake. And then you can remove your circle.